Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Harakah, Kadash, double honors unto the apostles and elders, great millstone who rule well, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. This video is going to be entitled Gradualism, uh, Subtlety of the Serpent, alright? And this is something that Esau Edom, or as he's known to the world, the so-called white man, is utilizing through his government that's in power right now the world over in various forms throughout the world, whether you're dealing with America, the United Kingdom, Spain, Italy, Sweden, all these various different places. Even though Sweden technically isn't even on a lockdown, they're 10 years ahead of the curve in terms of technological advancements. And what I mean by that is basically, ready in the minds of the people to take the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast in the Bible. Okay, so that's that gradualism. You see, everyone, even though, and that even plays into Satan being divided, his house being divided, because he isn't working in unison with all the facets of his kingdom. They're all just operating at their own pace, and they want to do it in their own way. All right. But anyway, let me get to the point. So gradualism, I'm going to just read this definition here. And it reads, a policy of gradual reform after rather than sudden change or revolution. All right. So that's what Esau is basically utilizing at this point in time. All right. A policy of gradual reform rather than sudden change or revolution. Yeah, he right now, Esau has been dragging his feet. Okay. He could have got, if it was in his own hands and it was the will of the Lord, if it was the will of the Lord, he would have been just, made a stark change in things and just rolled out the RFID chip. But no, that's not in the spirit of this devil, all right? He does it through what? Policy, okay? And that's by the laws that he passes and all these different things which are done through these events that play out. False flags, planned pandemic, all these different things are basically, that policy of gradual reform. All right. So I'm going to grab this scripture. This is Daniel 8:25. And through his policy, also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. All right. And this is talk about Esau. Esau Edom, who is, known as the so-called white man. And that's what I was thinking. Yeah. It says in Psalms 83:3, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. And that's why now you have the face of the pandemic has turned into the so-called blacks and Hispanics. All right. But then the key question that should really be asked is that, all right, if they've got it, then why ain't it? You see, Ebola is always popping off on the west coast of Africa. Why ain't Ebola? Why ain't COVID-19 doing the same thing over there on the west coast of Africa? But yet you have the face of COVID-19, so-called Negroes, Hispanics. That's that crafty counsel and that policy. So when it says Daniel 8:25, and through his policy also he shall cause that crafty counsel, to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his mind, in his heart, which is his mind, and by peace shall destroy many. All right? And that's the guise that he comes under the guise of peace, which ultimately really isn't, the peace that's being presented at this point in time is normalcy, all right? Everything going back to normal. The peaceful life that you had, that you could go out on a Friday, get drunk and, have a one-night stand or sleep with another man's woman, or, go to your restaurant and eat your prawn linguine or whatever it is, all of that kind of stuff. But that's under the guise of peace, okay? and by peace shall destroy many. And ultimately, that's signified by the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast, which, you know, represents that peace. All right, that, you know, everything going back to normal, and you're safe and you're secure. All right, you got a vaccine in your body. You shall also stand up against the Prince of Princes, Yahweh Shai, and he shall be broken without hand. Alright? So now I want to back this point up, delve into it a bit more to show you, you know, how that policy was executed. So this is first Maccabees 8:1 to the fourth verse, sorry. Now Judas had heard of the Romans, okay, and we know the Romans, Esau, Edom. Alright, and this shows you that the Bible does contain history, man. It's got fluidity with the history of man. Alright, secular history. That they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. Alright, and why is that really? Really to come under their vibration only for that one world government. But anyway, reading on. And that they were men of great valor. Alright, that's because the Lord blessed them with the sword, you know, that warfare, iron teeth. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and now they had how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and what they had done in the country of Spain for winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there. Alright, so now it's the point, verse 4. And that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place. Alright, so that's the point. By their policy, you know, enacting different forms of laws and, you know, working brain, you know, basically different laws and being passed basically allowed them to let me even read this. So this is the definition of policy: a course or principle of action adopted or proposed by an organization or individual. So this is, you know, a course of action that was proposed, but obviously by force of the sword or with subtlety, to basically, you know, implementing that policy and patience. They had conquered all the place. So that's how they allowed. That's what allowed them to establish dominion, right? Though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the utmost part of the earth, till they discomfited them, and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Okay, but that was the point here, and that they, by their policy, their laws being passed, okay, the statutes and patience, all right, some taking their time and waiting, that they had conquered all the place. All right, so basically that's the point. Okay, and let's not forget the most modern example of that is with Gad. All right, because what happened with Gad basically was really subdued, but in the same manner, by policy and patience. What was the policy? The policy was the treaty agreements, by where of, you know, we're not gonna fight no more. You're gonna have that side of the river. We're gonna have this side of the river. But then, you know, through a process of time, they got won over, Gad, and basically took that land that they had allotted them and moved them down into, you know, what do you call it? Reservations, all right? And that was a course of patience, right? Through policy. Anyway, so now I want to get to the main point, because we're presently in a lockdown, the COVID-19 pandemic, and I want to show a key example, being that we are, alright, as it tells you in Revelations, the 11th chapter, in spiritual Sodom and Egypt, that these things, you know, it says the things that are written aforetime are written for our learning. So it makes sense for us to go back to, if this is spiritually Sodom and Egypt, it makes sense for us to go back to the literal Sodom and Egypt. And in this occasion, we're going back to Egypt, all right? Because it even says where Israel's admonished in Isaiah, it tells you, woe to them that go down to Egypt to seek a covering, and that seek covering, um, but not of. Let me just read it quickly before I delve into this. Alright, Isaiah 30:1. Woe unto the rebellious children, saith the Lord Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me, that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin. Alright? That walk to go down into Egypt, and have not asked at my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and to trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. So now this is Genesis 47, and I'm going to start from verse 13 and read down to 27. So it reads, I'm just going to fly through it and get in where I fit in. And there was no bread in all the land. Now, presently we're dealing with the world over. Postar uploaded a video on his channel, GMS DocuTube, dealing with the inflation that's happening over there in the States, dealing with eggs being about $20, a little piece of meat, beef, I believe, like $20 odd as well. So you're seeing a form of inflation, okay? And that's gonna and that's ultimately down to the fact that everyone's been panic buying, and it's somewhat of it's a manufactured famine, so to speak, because it's the panic of everyone rushing to the stores and buying, and the closing of restaurants and many other facets, because the restaurants being closed, a lot of people that don't actually cook now have to cook all the time. So that's led to a huge demand, which the supply can't handle, right? Which is, surely leading to a to a famine, okay? Because a lot of the food is imported, as well as you have a sitting nation, they're not working, and people are not allowed to actually reap the fields of fruits and vegetables. So there's a lot in terms of that's happening, that's going to lead to a famine, right? Lord willing. So it's Genesis 47:13, and there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. Excuse me. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they brought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house, right? So he had loads of people buying corn from Pharaoh. Because why? Because through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahshai B'Hashem HaRakah Kadosh, Joseph was given a breakdown of Pharaoh's dream of basically the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of, I felt like saying empty, but the 7 years of famine. Being in the midst of the 7 years of famine, and Joseph basically implementing a regimen for saving extra grain to deal with this period. They had one up over everyone, and were able to feed them sustenance, and basically at the same time take all their substance, and put Egypt in a position of power. Okay, so and when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, "Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth." Right, so they basically run out of money, and this is the process that we haven't even touched in this period yet. People are slowly but surely running out of money, and that's why that woman in that video that Apostle uploaded on his channel said, "Yo, they're trying to starve us," was what she was basically saying, all right, because she knew that there's gonna come a time where they ain't got enough money to buy the food that they need to buy to be able to survive, okay. and this is, a process. Think about the fact that the Rothschilds, the key banking family, at the head of the table, underneath Satan, they basically, you had Maya Amshar, but you had his forefather, her father, Moses Amshar, which was, I'm not sure if it was a rabbi, but he was into the scriptures, and they were very aware of the Bible and the power in it. And these stories serve as, a teaching unto them. Again, Revelations 11 and 7 and 8 tells you about being spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So anyway, let me read on. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. Cattle is a form of wealth. As you read in Genesis, the 13th chapter, it tells you about Moses being rich in what? Gold, silver, and cattle. Okay? So Joseph basically took away their livestock, all right? And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle and the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year. So it's only a year period. So this is 7 years of famine that they're ensuing, showing you gradualism, all right? When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year, and said unto him, we will not hide it from my lord, how that our money is spent. My lord also have our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my lord, but our bodies and our lands. All right. So further showing that what they had, as a form of trade for the food, the sustenance that they needed, all they had was their bodies and the land that they possessed. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, showing you that they were sovereigns prior to this, even though Pharaoh proceeded over them. They had somewhat sovereignty within the land. For the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. So that amount and that land, you got to think about it. He's got their cattle and their land. So now he can make much more wealth, because when the dearth is over, the famine, the 7 years of famine, he will have that land and them to work upon that land to basically give him more revenue in terms of crop. But then also with the livestock, they'll also bring forth, their seed and multiply them onto Pharaoh. Okay. And as for the people he removed from Salakia, and as for the people he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even unto the other end thereof. Only the lands of the priests bought he not. So he even moved them. And and in my mind, what I'm thinking about is the same thing like ghettos, man. Or like, not so much ghettos, but, a land mass where you just said, okay, boom, you don't need those lands no more. So I'm going to segregate the piece of this place for you. You and your families can live there. Making it a lower class, a lower place in society for them to dwell, so you can have all their possessions and enjoy it. All right, because as it tells you, only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh. They were what? The upper echelon of society, right? The elites. Okay, and that's what you have in this society. You have the Illuminati, the 13 banking families, and you have the lesser luminaries, which are underneath them, which act in some capacity as priests onto this system here. All right. For the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. All right. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have brought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. See? All right? And Joseph, Yahweh Sap, living up to his name, ye shall add. All right? And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh. So they're going to give 20% of their earnings unto Pharaoh. And 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field and your food, and for your food, and for them of your households, and for the food of your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. Right? And that's because why? Why were they at the point to say such words? Why did they feel like this? Because what? They got that what's that word I was looking for, man? They got that normalcy, so to speak. Things went back to normal. They didn't have to worry. All right, they were in fear of what? Death. That's why they sold their land and themselves into slavery. All right, and they said, "Thou hast saved our lives." So they were grateful. They were joyful. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord. And they wanted their lives were saved, and they wanted to maintain that comfort. And that's why they said this, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. Because why? They esteemed Pharaoh as king, able to, establish that normalcy in their lives. And Joseph made it a law, a policy over the land of Egypt unto this day, that the Pharaoh should have a fifth part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's. Okay, so basically that was gradualism, right? To a T, alright? That was a key example because it said a policy of gradual reform rather than sudden change or revolution. And that was a gradual change or reform. Because what was it? Joseph knew how long the dearth was going to last. And knew that he would there was no need for them to ride out and force them to take their lands or nothing. It was just a matter of time that they would come running to them and give all their possession, give themselves over onto Pharaoh. All right, but then to show you, let me get another precept and then I'll end on this scripture, just to compound that point. It's Isaiah 36:6, and it reads, Lo, thou trustest in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt. Okay, the broken reeds talk about the cannula that's injected into the body of those that should take the RFID chip, which is the mark of the beast. Okay, because the cannula is a synonym for the etymology of the word reed. All right. On Egypt, okay, dealing with this modern day Egypt, wherein if a man lean, it will go into his hand, it'll pierce into his hand, karagma, karaks, alright, and pierce it. So is Pharaoh king of Egypt to all that trust in him. So he becomes what? The king to those that put their trust in him. And that's basically the process that we're in right now with Esau, Edom, okay. So it says, verse 27, Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. All right? And that's really, the Egyptians really suffered under the hand of Pharaoh and via Joseph's wisdom, the wisdom that was endowed onto Joseph, sorry. And that's why, taking it into this modern day, this modern time, it tells you that wisdom and knowledge should be the stability of thy times. Really, what you know is what's going to save you. And that's why I'll read this. I'll close on this scripture. So Job 5:19. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in a 7 there shall no evil touch thee. In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of beasts of the field. For thou shalt be in league with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with thee. And thou shalt know that thy tabernacle shall be in peace, and that thou shalt visit thy habitation and shall not sin. But that's the point, right? He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in the 7 there shall no evil touch thee, which only is the destruction. Alright, Lord willing, we be those men, the men of the elect men of the house of Israel. Alright, as we're known today, the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So that was a lesson, man. I pray you were edified. Gradualism.